Well, welcome to today's podcast. Our guest is from Sydney, Australia. He's the #1 authority on trust-based selling. He has a master's degree in instructional design. He's been featured on Sky News, Forbes magazine, and the Australian Financial Review. And I tell you what, guys, I've been chatting to him for a long time. He's actually quite a nice guy. Welcome to the show, Ari Galper. How are you, buddy?
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. And we're fellow Sydney-siders, I see.
Yeah, except I got the accent. You have your accent. That's the difference.
If people don't realise, Sydney is a very spread town, and it does change a little bit from one side to the other.
Exactly.
Mate, have you always lived in Sydney?
So I'm originally from California,
Yep.
from San Diego. That's where I grew up. Actually, mother from South America. My father's from the U.S. And I spent my whole life in California. Met my wife, who's from Sydney.
Yes.
She's working in Los Angeles 20 years ago on a dating site online.
Oh, wow.
In California, this is pre-swiping. This is sort of like the photo and the description. That's pretty much it, and an email address. You know? Pretty old school. So she emails me. She was in Los Angeles at the time. We had a conversation, and we connected. We dated, and she says to me, "Why don't you come out and visit my family in Sydney?" And I said, "Well, that's pretty far for us to fly that far. You know, us Americans don't go that far usually." And
That's true.
And I said, "Okay." So we came out here, and we got engaged and got married. Then our plan was to live in the U.S. Long term. But 6 months later, a gift came to our lives. Our son Toby, who has special needs, he has Down syndrome, and because he's an amazing boy, we decided to bring him back over here. My wife has more family, more support than I had over there, so we decided to pack up our bags, start our life over here. I've been here 20 years now.
So, do you have many families still back in the States?
Yeah, so I have parents in San Diego and a sister in Los Angeles, but mostly it's a small family there. I do go back for speaking tours and visit them occasionally. Most of my life is here now.
All right. So, being a fellow salesperson and trainer, I do know a little bit how you think. So, I'm going to have a bit of fun with this today.
Absolutely.
What type of student were you at school?
Not a superstar. I'll tell you, academically, I would say B, C range. You know, just kind of making it through. As opposed to my son, he's like an A student. I said, God, I wish I was like him. It was always difficult for me to get through school. It wasn't easy.
Yep.
So academia wasn't my thing.
Yeah, I can relate to that completely. So did you study over in California or did you study in Australia?
Yeah, so I went to uni, UCLA, undergraduate, and then master's degree, as you mentioned there, in instructional design from San Diego State University. That specialty is focusing 2 years on designing instruction for how people best learn, how they break down information concepts and they consume it to be able to change their behavior with it. I learned how to develop training programs to that degree. That's what became my baseline behind my ability to communicate what I do.
And were you a better student or a better social student when you were at uni?
I think probably a better social student. You know, it was difficult to sort of get past the exams, but I knew it was my calling was to help people change their behavior and their thinking. And this degree helped me with that way of moving people to a new place.
Awesome. So when you first followed your wife and said, look, I'm going to come to Australia and meet everybody, and then you made the big decision to stay here. I do like to ask this question because a lot of our guests have moved around the world and they think that America, England, and Australia are all the same, and they're not. What was the biggest cultural or the biggest challenge you had when you came to Australia from the United States?
Well, I think I came too formal, too structured. I remember having my first seminar here in the CBD in Sydney many years ago, and I had my suit and tie on. Everyone came in kind of casual, and I felt like I was the odd man out, you know, and I had to sort of learn to be more relaxed, you know, let my shirt hang out a bit, and I kind of loosened up, you know, became a citizen here. And I think it was just more of a culture shift for me, because the culture is more relaxed here. Yet it still is formal, but I was still sort of in my own structure when I was there.
Did you see the same in business?
Good question. I would say same seriousness, but maybe I felt like there's more ambition over there. There's always a tall poppy here, you know, when you do really well, people kind of bring you down. Over there, when you do really well, people kind of say, great, keep going. You know? So it's a bit of I was sort of shocked by that sort of attitude with people who were doing well or climbing above someone else. And then there was all this crowd saying, well, come back down here where we are, which I know the story behind that, how it all began as part of a social thing here. But I think that's something that as us, we can say we want to break through as much as possible.
I've seen it. I mean, I've been in sales and training for 30 years myself. And years ago, you were right. I see it not as much now.
Yeah.
I see it changing immensely. When you've also obviously dealt and gone overseas, and I've spoken to many people who have dealt and watched Australians work in business, be in management and present in the States. Do you see when you go back home a bit of Australian back in you when you walk on stage or you're speaking to people in business, or do you try to revert back to an American again?
I think I stay Aussie now after 20 years. So when I do go back, and I was been on a speaking tour last year pre-COVID, I try and be more relaxed, more casual, more conversational with people, especially speaking stage or doing live coaching. I'm also known for doing live sales calls in a room in front of thousands of people as well.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Where I call their customers in front of them. So I've got more relaxed doing that now.
I remember watching an interview with Tony Robbins, and he compared about when the first time he came out here until how he comes out here now. And he looked and he said, I can tell you straight up, if I want to relax and work at the same time, I come to Australia because they don't care what I walk on stage in.
True.
Mate, sales, from 20 years ago when you first came here to now, what have you seen as the biggest changes?
Well, I guess I might reverse that question and tell you what I see has not changed. And that is the old sales behaviors and conditioning that from the 1980s, some people still carry in the back of their subconscious. They're still playing the numbers game. They're still chasing what I call ghosts. People say, I'm interested, but don't want to buy anything. They're still caught up in this sort of dysfunctional relationship with the act of selling. And it goes across the border around the world. And I think I've made it my life mission to break that pattern as much as possible, because I think everyone loses when we can't build trust with people in the sales process. And if we hijack the agenda for our goal, we lose that trust building.
I see now, especially Australia being so multicultural, the level of trust goes both ways in Australia, where some cultures overseas don't trade on trust, where Australians and Americans and English and Hong Kong Chinese build on trust. Once you have their trust, you're fine. But other cultures don't. How do you see salespeople today having to broach that to try and get through to people? Well, trust is a two-way street when it comes to selling.
Well, I think now more than ever, with what happened in the world recently, that I believe trust is a new currency. In most places around the world. Obviously, there might be some cultures that don't use that as a core bridge, but for countries that do, you've got, if you're living in those countries where trust is important, you get of how created systematically, how to be aware of when the opportunities are coming your way. Because I think a lot of us just sleepwalking, not being aware of when trust is right in front of us and we miss it.
Oh, how true, how true. Well, Ari, as we come out of COVID and a lot of people, and not a lot of trust when it comes to government or business, they don't trust the media because people are saying one thing or another. How are we going to rebuild that trust, and how are we going to get people to get re-engage in sales? I mean, some of these salespeople aren't going to know what to do.
Look, I think if you look at the human condition, we all need to feel that people care about us. There's a sense of resonance when we sense that other people, organizations care about us. I think the challenge is that we've been so conditioned to promote ourselves, to sell our product. We don't really know how to start the relationship from the client point of view. And that can go from any perspective possible. But I think the key thing here really is that we can heal the world again if we decide that trust it should be a priority. I think it should.
If someone came to you, first we'll look at retail business. And retail have been open and closed, open and closed. They've gone online. people have gone online and maybe seen the same or similar product cheaper. How does a retail shop rebuild the trust with their clients that used to come in?
Well, they first have to close the loops on the things that broke trust in the first place. It may not be the issue with trust with the company, it might be trust with just shopping in general. That's a different issue. But I think if a business themselves has a customer list or database or clients who want to re-engage again, they have to think about a way to re-communicate with people in a different way, in what I call a trust-based way. And that comes from empathy and focusing on their problem.
Yeah, I think they call it emotional intelligence too in some places. How does business now? Some of these businesses closed on a moment's notice and didn't tell anyone. They just stopped and then reopened, expect everyone to start doing business with them. Yeah, and other businesses pivoted and moved all their guys online and looked after their people. Now I see those businesses have kept the trust, and in many cases, when I've spoken to some of these people, they've actually increased their sales. And other businesses, haven't. I mean, I heard of a big business in Chicago that was the #1 restaurant in its genre or niche, as you call it. It took them 3 months to pivot to online. By that time, they lost their sales and they closed.
Wow.
Especially with medium businesses that are, say, sales rep based. How do they rebuild the trust, and how would you look at them if they came in and say, okay, we're starting with a clean slate. What do I do to get the trust of customers back to give them the confidence to deal with us again?
Well, first, you can't assume the trust. And a lot of companies do. What they really need to do is, in those retail shops that have closed down or restaurants, I wonder if they actually collected a list of the names of their customers who came to the restaurant every night. Did they have a way to collect their details, their address, their phone number? Did they even think about the idea of communicating with the customers offline on an ongoing basis to build a relationship with them? Probably not. And that's the biggest shift that you have to make now. It's not just about having a customer transact with you. It's about how do you build a relationship with them in between the transaction.
And how would you suggest to a business, let's say a brand new business is starting post-COVID, in today's world where people now are far more tech savvy than they were, they've had time to sit and look on the internet and actually educate themselves about what they do. How does a brand new business today build trust with new customers that have never, ever dealt with them and they've only been around in the last couple of months themselves?
Well, assuming you have a customer or you have customers coming in, again, a lot of my work is very contrarian. And I would suggest that they actually create, believe it or not, this might be shocking, a physical in-the-mail newsletter.
Yeah.
They put a stamp on.
Yeah.
They hold the paper in their hand. It's not digital. And they drop it in the mailbox, and it arrives every week or month in the hands of their customers that tells their story as a way to differentiate their business. Because the more digital we go, the less trust you have with people because there's no human connection. There's nothing physical to connect you together.
It's very easy to delete an email, isn't it?
I would not try to win the battle in someone's inbox anymore. That's a losing battle. I would not even try and win it any other means other than having a combination of online and offline together.
It's amazing. Through all of this, Aldi, the big supermarket chain from Germany, has not stopped their letterbox drops of their every weekly calendar, their weekly flyers.
You know who doesn't? You know who doesn't either?
No.
Harvey Norman.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
They know that they add in those inserts in newspapers as much as they can every week because they know that people go there and they, no matter what happens, they keep doing it.
Now, you're known as the #1 expert when it comes to around the world, actually, when people come to you about trust-based selling. What do you see, or what do they come to you the most about when a company comes to you and says, hi, I need your help? What is it, Ari? What are they asking for these days?
Mostly I'm seeing professionals who have service-oriented business like an advisor, a consultant, an entrepreneur. They're stuck in what I call the chasing game. And what that means is they end up playing the numbers game with lots of contacts, lots of leads, but they're not converting them into new clients. They're just chasing people as if it's a normal way of doing business.
I think we used to call it the shotgun sales version when I was first started in sales.
What happens is we've accepted the idea of a long sales cycle as being the norm.
Yeah.
We assume it's okay to have multiple meetings, multiple steps, because we have to build a relationship with someone first, for them to like us and know us first before they want to buy from us. And I would suggest that in this day and age now, that trust building and relationship building can be mutually exclusive. Meaning if you focus on trust only and not the relationship, you can still be successful. It's almost like a doctor-patient relationship, right? So the patient says, my shoulder hurts. Doctor says, let me take a look. Where? Over here. Oh, yeah. You need an x-ray. We need a diagnosis.
Yeah.
There at all. In fact, I'm working on a new bumper sticker right now. And it's going to say, doctors don't do coffee.
Well, that's true. So what do you see as the difference between relationship selling and trust-based selling?
Relationship selling is people who are selling, trying to become the other person's friend, to be liked for their own self-validation.
Yep.
It's fake anyways. And boy, it's all old school sales stuff that we're taught to do. How's it going? How's the weather? Nice to meet you. So it's all fake. Just remove that relationship building. I tell my clients, you build a relationship with someone after the sale, not before the sale. Before the sale, you only focus on their problem. You diagnose their issue for them to feel that you understand them. When you understand them, that is trust building, not just having them like you. They don't really need to like you to buy from you.
That's true. Hey, that's so true. So when you look at it now, I mean, we hopefully will be going back to being on stage and talking to people. Have you ever been on stage and someone has thrown you, as we call it in Australia, a doozy of a question, and you've just gone, oh crap, how do I answer this?
In my early days, I think I had a few of those. And the funny thing is, I now have a streaming show every week called Stump the Guru, where people jump on. And funny, people jump on and they ask me live questions, try and stump me, and they get an award. They can stump me, and no one has stumped me yet. But the nice thing about sales is only so many scenarios you can come across.
True.
Enough on my fingers, I could probably count them all. So once you understand from a trust perspective how to diffuse and re-engage, usually you can help people get along, okay on their way.
Yeah, it's I've heard of something similar in some of the other ones, and it actually shows a true professional when you're willing to stand up there with no safety net and just say, come on, go for it.
Bring it on. Anytime you want, come challenge me with whatever sales challenge you might have.
I've actually used that technique in a sales call that wasn't going that well, and then just put it on the table. Okay, let's ask any question you like. And it's funny, it built trust.
Yeah. And that's what people are looking for. Yeah. They're looking for truth tellers. They're looking for people who don't have any smoke screens. They're looking for people who aren't afraid to break through the noise. And that authenticity is what creates trust with you and your clients.
Do you think building trust with clients also includes telling them something that really isn't good? When, being straight up honest with them, if someone says, did you do this, or why didn't that come? Rather than tell a pork pie and say, oh, the truck didn't turn up, or all that. Is it better, do you think, just to turn around and say, look, the guy in the order room mucked up the order. I'm sorry, it'll be there tomorrow?
I think you can definitely tell the truth like that, but you have to do it with bedside manner, with what I call trust-based languaging. There's ways of communicating by getting your point across without making them feel bad. So we've done a lot of work around that with our group here on what we call trust-based languaging, words and phrases to use that replace sales languaging around that.
So how do you tell somebody using your language that the order wasn't put through, the guy didn't hit, basically, and it's lost, something really bad when it comes to that?
Well, the first thing I do is I'd apologize.
Yeah.
Right up front. I'd say, I just wanted to mention something to you in a minute, but before I do that, I want to apologize to you.
Yeah.
See, that doesn't usually happen in business. Usually say, oh, the order didn't come through. We're so sorry about that. Well, it's too late to say sorry after you tell them.
That's true.
You have to start with the apology first and what I call fall on your sword. Fall on your swords first. Say, hey, I just want to first let you know in advance. I want to apologize for what I'm about to tell you. That diffuses the pressure right away and brings them down to the earth a little bit.
I remember dealing with a lady who was working in an industrial company in Australia, and I was warned about her. And a lot of people didn't get on with her. And someone said to me, she will never ask you a question she doesn't know the answer. And in your first couple of meetings, if you lie to her, you'll blow the trust.
Yeah.
And we had a terrible record. It was a multi-million-dollar contract, and we were going south, and our service was disgraceful. And it was adversarial meetings. And I walked in and went, blah, blah, blah. And she asked me some questions. I didn't know what she was going to ask me. And I just went straight up with the truth. And we kept the account.
Yeah.
I was honest with her. I said, I'm going to be honest with you as long as you are honest with me. And she was in the mining industry, and she went, deal. And she was used to dealing with tough people. And I'd made the mistake myself of the other way, the sales version.
You'd be surprised how amiable and relaxed people can be when you yourself are honest with them right up front from the beginning.
Is there such a thing as a one-call sales close?
Well, I wouldn't add the word close to the back of that. But I will say there is the one-call sale, and I'm working on a book around that next year called The One-Call Sale.
So how would you define it?
Well, the way we define a one-call sale is that assuming you have a qualified person you're speaking with, you have a scheduled call with them.
Yep.
If you build enough trust with them on that conversation, at the end of the call, you will know if they're a fit with you or not. Meaning either they're going to onboard and move forward or you disengage. There's not a, let's talk next week. I'll follow up with you. I'll call you or I'll think about it. There's none of that sort of round the block thing. So the one call sale is what I call getting to the truth in one conversation, so you're not playing any more games with them. You know where you stand.
And how hard is that to teach someone?
It's not hard as long as they're open-minded. And if they're wedded to the old way of selling, which is close, 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 convert, convert, they're going to struggle.
And I'll throw another one at you. Most people will tell you, will say to you, well, I know they're reading off a script. I've heard it all before. How do you get someone to do the one-call sale without it sounding as though they're reading off a script like you do when you get the telecalls from India and Philippines and everywhere else?
Well, with our approach, there is no script because you basically know in advance what the core problems are in your market. And you know how to go what I call down the iceberg with someone. Iceberg means when they tell you what their problem is, but that isn't what they actually need. What they need is something else. And you ask questions to unpack that. So they say to themselves, how does he know me so well? How did he know I needed that and not that? That's what deep trust is on one conversation.
Yeah. Sell them what they want, give them what they need. I've heard that before.
How often have you met somebody who said, this is my problem, it turns out it's something else?
Every time. Especially when I was a sales manager, the guys who worked for me, they used to say one and it always ended up being something else.
Yeah.
Another part of sales a lot of people don't look at are executives. They've got to sell themselves to the staff that work for them, and they've got to sell themselves to the business people when they go out with their salespeople. And a lot of them struggle. A lot of them really struggle getting that connection and really struggle building trust up. If a senior executive comes to you, and I'm sure they have, and they said, Ari, I'm having trouble. The guys don't engage with me. The customers are being polite, but that's about it. How do I build trust with the customers so they trust us even more?
I would say to him, if you were him, I'd say, you have to know how to go below the surface of what their perceived issues are and go to a deeper level where they feel you understand them. It's possible what you're doing is only you're talking to them at the surface level. You're not penetrating that wall. See, what interesting about customers is they only see things 180 degrees in their business.
True.
The outside, you see it 360. So use a 360 view to reconnect with them at a level they haven't done before.
Do you think a lot of senior executives don't understand the customers that they serve?
I would say that they don't understand them at a deep level, yes.
Yeah.
Because unless you're in the front lines and you're hearing the issues and you're unpacking the issues every day, then at some point you'll be so detached from your customer they can slowly move away from you.
So now, fingers crossed, we're going to come out of post-COVID. Where do you see sales going? Do you see it changing a lot? Do you see technology becoming a bigger part of the day-to-day sales, or do you see us moving back to shaking hands, having coffee, and maybe in a different way, but going back to a little bit of relationship and a little bit of trust-based selling?
Look, I think there'll be a lot more channels, a lot more channels coming out to reach people. That will never end. It'll be unlimited what's happening and what's coming next. But the thing is, your approach has to be solid, regardless of the channels. There are people right now on LinkedIn, as you probably know, who are selling the old way. They're sending messages saying, "Hi, can we meet? Can we?" They're just pushing themselves in a different medium. They haven't changed their approach, but they have a new medium, and that's the issue. You can't use new technology and mediums to communicate if you're still using the old approach.
Oh, so true, so true. And if someone came to you now and said, "Right, Ari, we're getting all our sales team together next week. You know, it's the first time they've been physically together probably for 18 months. We want you to get up and give you a presentation. I'm going to give you open slather on what you think we need to talk to them about." What would you be talking to them about?
I'd say have them bring a list of their toughest objections, their most resistance on their conversations. Bring me a list of their pipeline that they're chasing. Let me go behind enemy lines and really see what they're struggling with, and we'll deal with that first.
Have you ever done a Tony Robbins and said, "Here, give me one of your customers, let's call"?
So I do that all the time. That's what I'm known for, is making live calls in front of a room to their customers to demonstrate what it's like to connect with someone over the phone with trust, even though I don't work for the business.
And have you had a few of them change color as the conversation's gone along?
Well, who? The people watching, or the person on the phone?
Well, probably everyone watching is laughing their heads off.
The people watching are usually in a state of shock.
Yeah.
Because they can't believe that someone from the outside can actually talk to their customers and engage in a deep level without knowing the product. Because what I teach is that your clients don't really care about your solution. What they care about is whether you're the one to solve their problem or not. They're buying you, not your product.
Mate, that is absolutely awesome. If you look back now and you ran into your 20-year-old self back in California, and you looked up and the guy said in the corner, "I know you, I just don't know where," and you look at him and you know you're talking to yourself, what would you say to yourself? What advice would you give to yourself if you were standing on that corner?
I guess I'd say to myself, be bolder in your decisions.
Yeah.
Reach higher and be persistent, and don't doubt yourself.
Mate, that's most, as we know, this on this podcast, we do interview a lot of real people that have had amazing success. And then tell you what, the ones that have been the most successful have basically said the same thing. You know, back yourself.
Yeah, there's a pattern there.
I wish someone had said it to me when I was younger.
Exactly.
If I gave you the choice of sharing the stage with two other people, who would they be and why?
I'd say one is one of my mentors and colleagues, Perry Marshall.
Yep.
He's just really very authentic and brilliant at marketing and positioning. I learned a lot from him. And the other one is about the gentleman, actually, I was watching this video from him recently. Tim Grover. He wrote a book called Relentless. He was the coach. He was a mindset coach, physical coach for Michael Jordan. I love his thinking about how to achieve your goals and not let your inner voice get in your way. So those two people would be a good combination.
Mate, that's absolutely awesome. So this goes around the world. So not everyone can sort of go down to inner city and find you for a beer. How do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do?
Best thing is go to LinkedIn, find my name, Ari Galper. Connect with me and say hello, or go to unlockthegame.com, just like it sounds. Unlockthegame.com is a free course there, some options there, and also a coaching session available to you complimentary as well.
And when's the new book out, Matt?
Next year sometime. Working on that right now with the publisher.
Oh, mate, I can't wait to have a read of that and get to have a look at it. Mate, it has been an absolute pleasure. We've got through the technical difficulties that we've been having thanks to COVID. I think it got into the internet somewhere.
Yeah.
I think, and I actually know that our listeners are going to love what they've heard from you today. And I know we're going to probably have a follow-up next year when that book comes out. So
that's good.
Beware, I'll give you a tingle. You take care. Be safe there in Sydney. And as we say all the time on our podcast, have a groovy day.
Likewise.